It's the HoopWise podcast from New England Basketball Journal, a comprehensive look at the basketball landscape in New England, tracking prospects, recruiting, college, and more, with your hosts, Steve Hewitt and Ethan Fuller.
Summer is winding down, but our guest list stays hot. Welcome back to another episode of the HoopWise podcast, part of New England Basketball Journal. I'm Ethan Fuller, Steve Hewitt with me as always. As I said, I think we've had a really great guest list over the last month or so, and we're going to keep it rolling. If you're in the girls basketball space at pretty much any level and capacity, you probably know of Shane Laflin at this point, Director of Evaluating Services at Premier Basketball. He also oversees ESPN's girls basketball rankings. He's on the McDonald's All-American Game Committee. He is so involved in so many aspects of girls high school basketball, college basketball, recruiting, all sorts of stuff. And so we are so psyched to have Shane on. Thank you, Shane, for joining us. How are you and how's your summer been?
Man, I appreciate you guys. Summer was great. It was fast per usual. And excited. I'm glad, to have met and connected with you at Hoop Hall and been able to share some passion for the game and stay in touch. And then we just did the dance and finally got this on a calendar that worked for both of us.
Yeah. And understandably, it gets kind of crazy especially once you get to spring with all the different grassroots events and that sort of stuff. But yeah, this is going to be really fun. I think this will be a mix of questions that I ask you on behalf of myself as someone who wants to get better at talent evaluation and understanding player development. And I think a lot of these questions will also be helpful for the players and families that watch this. So to start, we'll get a little bit of background on you. I'm going to go through this probably too quickly, but before getting to Premier, you were an assistant or a grad assistant at Texas, and then UT Arlington, and then Rice, and then joined Premier in 2016. I'm going to reference some other podcasts, but on the Hoopheads podcast, you explained how you kind of arrived at Premier. And that'll be my first question for you is, can you take us through that decision? And also, did you ever imagine that you would have the current footprint that you now have in girls basketball?
Yeah. So the bullet points of that, I've explained like the people that have come, before me and developed some things that I was able to be a part of. It's been really serendipitous timing. So the founder of Premier Basketball, his name is Joey Simmons. And I had known Joey because back when it was actual AAU basketball, like not just like a coin term, right? But the brand, he was like the region rep and they hosted regional tournaments and even a national tournament. And I was in high school allowed to work, the table or the shot clock or site coordinator, because Shell Gunter let me double dip. We were site coordinate and do the shot clock. So you make like $50 an hour in high school. And it's like the greatest thing ever.
That's pretty
So
cool.
like I got to know all of them really well, including Joey. And as he built from there, as things went from just AAU to kind of a different free club scene, and he built events, Heart of Texas, Super 64, the things that he started doing, and starting eventually the Premier Basketball Report. We stayed in touch. I went, eventually then I was a GA at Texas. Our staff, as a GA, you couldn't be out. Obviously at that time, it wasn't the extended staffs that there are now, but, they knew him. They recruited his players. There were players there from Joey's teams that they won with. So there was always that relationship. And then as I got to be an assistant at UT Arlington, obviously like he was based out of the area. So he was, somebody that, you familiarize with. Same thing at Rice. We utilized the recruiting service at both places. And then, after Rice, just kind of fast forwarding, our head coach got let go. I went after some things I didn't get. I got offered things that I wasn't willing to move for in the 2 year. Like when I went to Rice, my dad had just passed away while I was at Rice. My mom passed away. It was just time to like take a different look. I had a different, obviously, like that'll give you a little bit of a different perspective. And I had kind of dove into work pretty hard, just getting through that stuff, and was fine, but just realized maybe it was time to kind of get reconnected with like what I wanted to do and in control of my path and some things that I had learned, just the people side of the business. Like there's no doubt the basketball part, the on the floor part, was something that was like deeply ingrained in my DNA. I needed to understand the people business better, and I needed to understand myself and how I was going to approach it with like what I could do well and what I didn't do well better. And had an opportunity to, I got offered by a handful of club teams in Texas to like coach their teams. I was most familiar with Joey. I was most comfortable with Joey. And there was the caveat of maybe bringing in some additional support or growth to the recruiting service, which, you know, we had utilized, and I was confident I could improve. So had fun with the club teams. I think I did that for 4 summers. Had some pretty good success, and we won a lot. And then the recruiting service started growing, and then we got the opportunity to join the McDonald's committee. Jason Key and Mark Williams and I, Joey was already on it. We interviewed and did that process, and that obviously, like, you know, opens people's eyes or whatever. So we're able to branch out, build more relationship, which is how I kind of built, you know, my relationship with KP, Kenneth Pinnell out of New York. And then the guys that we'd already built relationships with, like Chris Hansen, Brandon Clay, and those guys that I had known as a coach and then respected, you know, as things that they were doing. So we did that. And then there was right before COVID hit, we, again, serendipitously had agreed to sell to 3 Step Sports out of Austin. Literally the day before everybody was told to stay home, we all signed our papers, like quite literally. And those relationships and that strategy led to an opportunity to pursue the ESPN platform. And then we were told, okay, be patient, it's happening. And then I got a call from the CEO one day that said, actually, we're going to do this by Labor Day. And then
Oh man.
it's time to get to it. And at the same time is when we also, Joe Wooten had called me, and we were launching the Wooten 150 just because McDonald's still wanted to name a team, but all summer long we hadn't really had the chance to fairly evaluate, because obviously not everybody was playing. So we were able to take advantage of the fact that Texas could host some events. So all that kind of culminated at one time. As I mentioned, you know, serendipitous timing, and some of it just like the willingness to just do it and build it and work. And then along the way, just having the support of Joey and Jason Key and Mark Williams, and then now KP and the event branch with Select and 3 Step Sports, and then the other brands that we're connected to through that, and then even the other brands that we've built relationships with. We've had a really good team and a really small circle, and we just lean on each other, and we seem to get all the support that we need, and we just keep our heads down and keep working. We're so fortunate. I say it all the time. We work really hard, but it could be a real job, and that would suck, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I think about it in my job too.
It's the absolute truth.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's really cool. And what I think I really appreciate is that you have put so much effort into kind of accelerating what has really just been this growth around the women's game in general over the last 10 years. Like, even again, on past podcasts, you talking about the partnerships with like Cerebro. And as someone who previously like used Cerebro for NBA and WNBA stats, like I love advanced stats, and I love that is now existing at this level in a capacity. But yeah, I guess a little more generally, what do you think is the coolest part about just kind of being part of this ascendance for the entire sport in general over the last 10 years?
I mean, the coolest part is like the foundational relationships. And we've known for a really long time that this is a wonderful game, and basketball in general. I find it to be very, very unique. I reference David Hollander's book all the time that he wrote, How Basketball Can Save the World. And kind of he wrote it in a really elegant, metaphorical way, anecdotally, and then, you know, through history of basketball. And I'm a big believer. I wrote something similar to it a couple years ago on a much smaller scale. I'm not comparing the two, but similar thoughts and vein. And so we're really lucky in that front, and we've got a great game. And I think it gave me a lot of life experience and relationships and understanding of people and society and differences and things of that nature. And as far as the women's game and the rise, we want to welcome all newcomers. But people in our position have a responsibility. And Lindsay Kagawa-Colas from Wasserman, I thought, said it best to me, which was like, we'll welcome, everybody to the potluck, but we want to make sure they're bringing a dish. It's not you're not just taking a plate, and we want the fans and you want new people, but we have a responsibility to raise the level so it's not just a bunch of people jumping in and affecting the environment in a way that is just opportunists and things like that. So, and then the coolest thing is, people get to realize it. We've been studying the game forever. I mean, I have, and the people around me have, and we've appreciated it. And we've been around this game a really long time, and it's cool to see the recognition of that. I think I'm really careful with the line of validation and things. I don't think that's a healthy thing, because it's not validation. It was validated. It was just people weren't paying attention, and now they are. And so that's really cool. And then having responsibility, and then having worked enough to be in a spot where, there's a little bit of influence and respect. And so you can affect people positively. That, gives back tenfold. We ran a camp this summer in Ohio, and I've been tinkering with it for about 18 months. I just wanted to do something that was a little different, but also lend it to the game in a way that maybe wasn't necessarily out there in the format. We're not reinventing the wheel or anything. I wanted to do a little something different. And the feedback and the energy and the love that came from that, the camaraderie of the staff, whenever you give to the game, or in my experience, when I've given to the game, or I've just decided to try to do something and just say, look, we're going to give, we're going to be available, we're going to talk to people, we're going to lean on development and do these things, it's come back 100-fold. And they put a really big battery in my back to continue to do that. And then the itch to be on the floor just got that much worse. And so I'm so grateful for our staff and the people who attended, and that were so gracious in their feedback and how they shared things, and the demand to do it again. I literally was in a group message with our staff this morning telling them where to pencil it in for next year. So, that's the coolest part, is just feeling like you make a difference in it, and seeing people benefit from it is I can't thank everybody enough for that opportunity. And then, you just want to keep doing it. It's fun.
Yeah, no, I absolutely feel that. And even some of the earlier people you mentioned, like Jason Key and Joey Simmons, obviously all of you at Premier, and then KP getting involved, just the names that you see as prominent kind of faces in media at this level, you can tell how passionate everyone is. And I think that is really cool. And it's a good way to kind of go off your pot, like mentioned, to set the tone of everyone else who enters. You kind of got to match the energy that you guys all bring. And so,
yeah. And I found in this, Jason's been really good about this with me, my growth in this area, but I can find myself getting aggravated with the stuff that I don't want to affect the game. And, the highlight culture, or the selfish part of the culture, that people try to portray, even though I do not think that's the predominant culture of basketball. But just the conclusion that you come to is look, there's just no need to fight that stuff. You just need to be a better example. And so, raise the bar, and people will emulate. And that's kind of how we feel about our responsibility and what we do. And our litmus test with any of our opportunities is it good for the game? That's the first test. If it is, we proceed. All right, what about the people? Okay, where does it fit in the calendar? And then you get into the logistics, the business, the whatever, because those are necessary things to carry it on. But no, litmus test, is it good for the game? And that's, we go from there.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Shane, I want to maybe kind of get in the weeds a little bit with maybe shift a little bit to your evaluation, your scouting process. I think this might even help us, me and Ethan, as we
It will definitely help me,
kind of figure things out. But I think it would also help players and recruits kind of know what's being looked for when you're at a tournament or you're at an event in scouting and taking your own notes. Maybe how has your philosophy changed over the years? I know you talked about going through kind of some mistakes and figuring things out as you kind of delved into the space. But what do your notes look like when you're at a live period event? Those kinds of things. What are you looking for in a game setting, and what are kind of the important things you're looking for, I guess?
Yeah, well, sometimes my notes are not beautiful, so
Same here.
I figure it out. Sometimes there are a lot of no-look notes, and I'm I'll remember this abbreviation, and it's just not fantastic, but I figure it out. Yeah. I try to leave myself some breadcrumbs because I remember most of the players that you see and you like. But yeah, in terms of evolving, you go from college staffs, right? And I was able to touch a little bit of each level, thankfully, and learn and experience and lead a little bit at each level. And so I kind of had a good grasp of like who belonged where, but you kind of go from, the fit in your program or your class. And it's a little bit like you want to obviously at the mid, low major level, like you cast a little bit of a wider net than when you're at the power 4 level or whatever. But it's still a narrower, like who you can get and who you can, like particularly at Rice, like who we could even get in school. So like it was a little bit more of a narrow pool. Sliding over and just general eval, you're kind of paying attention to the entire room. And so you are casting a much wider net. And I, having come from like, a place where it bothers me if something's not its best, and working towards that on a collegiate staff, to just watching players and making notes about what they can do versus what they can't do. And then understanding the context, which has changed dramatically since I even started with Premier. The context of what you're watching matters, and that's all changed because of the circuits, the less days, different things. So just kind of paying attention, you've got to be able to zoom out and zoom in and be able to communicate and understand from our level, from like a client standpoint, right? Like I've got to be able to understand what those low major schools are looking for. And I'll be honest, like Jason Key's excellent at that. And I have like a lifeline of that communication through him. He does a fantastic job with all of these staffs, but we try to collab to make those calls, those references, those recommendations easier. Obviously, like it's a team thing, but I got to know kind of what they're looking for and the net they're casting and the mid majors, and you got to know the niche of the schools, and that way you're not reestablishing a relationship or a lens of which to recommend every time, and then building relationships with head coaches and different people in different conferences and changing P4 conferences, and then now we're talking about salary cap and NIL and all of these things. So in terms of what I'm watching, I mean, I go into an event with an outline of things that I know that I need to see, and I find my windows of where I can roam and identify. And then I try just to watch a game and not pre-identify anyone, because names will recognize. Now you'll glance at it and make sure, you'll look down for class, size, all of the above, right? To help you make some decisions. But you're looking for any kind of outlier things, a kid that can play, some savvy, some talk, obviously height, athleticism, skill, shooting. You start there, and then the further you watch, I get into the weeds and the nuance of my feel for that player on the court. And I think that, again, I'm not reinventing the wheel, but my lens is unique to me in terms of like the feel, the intuition. I've been on all sides of this. I think of things from like a scouting report standpoint. So you're building from that, like how would you compete? Because like at the end of the day, like the real basketball is what's going to count. I'm not necessarily valuable if I'm reporting on potential, right? Because potential definitely gets you fired. So like I'm trying to make my best educated guess with the access and time that I'm allowed to watch, as to recommendations for levels and then as we get more granular, specific programs. And then as we've evolved in our spot, now we're getting, the development questions from the players and the parents, or the guide me through an agency choice question. And so there's a whole new way in which I'm watching, socials or behaviors or just the room, right? So but yeah, I mean, the fact is, like, there are different programs, there are different styles. Luckily, I've watched 1 million hours of film. It doesn't take me long to identify like generalities, right? And then you just watch. And we're very particular about, once we identify people, kind of grouping them, like, are they a pool of top 100 player? Are they a mid major? Are they a low major? All right, who are the gray area riser potential types? And then making sure we go, I mean, our January to March process is a ton of film watch up, or film follow up, excuse me. We watch a ton. So it's like you want follow up, and you want to see consistency over time with what maybe you watched early on. And again, some of that's just experience. Some of it is watching for habits. Some of it's watching verbals, nonverbals, and just kind of understanding players generally fit into a projectable mold, and then you compare that against your like literal database, right, on the computer, or your experience database, and you start seeing, okay, where do they fit and how does this go? And you watch it over time, and hopefully you've identified them enough. And then again, we work with the follow-up to make sure, you know, how to best categorize those outliers.
There's a good 4 or 5 things I want to ask off that, but I think one thing I definitely wanted to get to, because I remember we had talked about this previously, and you explained this really well to me, is how important quote unquote intangibles, leadership traits are for you as an evaluator to watch. That was something that I kind of struggled with first early in just kind of understanding, like, is this something that can really be a make or break thing for when a college coach scouts? And you were very much like, yes, these teammate qualities do matter. And I think it's important for people watching and for kids potentially watching to know that. Can you describe that? Like, what are the teammate qualities that stick out to you when you're just kind of watching a game for the first time?
Yeah. So when people ask me what's the number one quality for freshman success in their transition, they expect me to say some physical attribute or a skill. And I just say maturity, because I try to help people understand when you get to campus, you're going to get your ass kicked. So you got to understand that. So like, that's important to know. And like, you got to know that you've gone from this pool, and we'll keep the math simple, right? 100,000 players that maybe had a chance. And now you're like less than a 1%er. So now your window of, you know, mistakes and freedoms and all these things, it shrinks. You're also now competing against people with way more elite experience than you. So like, that's very important. So like, that maturity, that self-awareness, there's a humility that's like, look, we're all competing. I'm, you know, I don't have to act out because I lost. I don't have to act out because I didn't make a play. Basketball's a next play game, particularly now. Everybody's trying to play a little bit more space. It's kind of the necessary thing. We've got a little bit more of a European influx. We've got less bigs because, you know, a lot of them are playing volleyball, whatever. It's a little bit more of a finesse game. That means there's thousands more decisions being made every game, right? Basketball's a good, bad, or indifferent. Basketball's a next play game. So you start to see resilience, toughness, how they take coaching, how they react to referees. And a big thing that I talk to players about is like, okay, if you're a Division I player in high school, there's a likelihood that means you're the best player or one of the 2 or 3 best players on your team. How do you make other people feel better? And it's twofold. One, if you're competitive, you'll try, and you should not let a good thing go unnoticed. You should make sure that those people feel valued when they do the things like rotate, block out, or make a layup, because that's what you need them for. And that's their skill set. You also are going to be that guy when you get on campus. So you can understand bridging that gap. It's why in development, I encourage people to go teach or coach young kids. It helps you with your coaching dynamic. You're like, oh, that's why they're so particular. That's why they want me to show my nonverbal understanding and communication when I'm being coached, because I'm coaching this little kid and they're not doing it. Now I'm frustrated, right? So like, I like them to understand that. So you can start to read some of those things. And again, it's over time, and they don't have to have it immediately. I've watched top 5 players in the 27 class that didn't start that way, that I'm really proud of when they started to do it. I had a really good moment with a couple of them at, what was it? Stewie's camp in March. Just their questions, their carryover, their follow-up. I said, we've got some maturity. And I'd have complaints before. You just have to let them get there. And so it's important for coaches and evaluators and people who are going to go coach them, recruiting people. I think it's very important to go meet them where they are. And so you pay attention to that evidence, because it's your job as that leader to do that. And then it's their job to recognize the value in that. And you kind of keep meeting them where they are, and then they want it more, right? So it's huge. And they're building teams. They're building locker rooms. And I referenced earlier salary cap and NIL. A lot of coaches are saying now, you know, we're going to build our roster different. We're going to build our team different because of the money thing. And I just found that to be pretty peculiar, because I'm like, shouldn't you have been building a team the whole time? with those thoughts, but now money's forced you to do it. So congratulations, you got here, and so those things probably are going to become more valuable for those guys that maybe wouldn't have had those opportunities in the past. And, hopefully that means, those blue collar forwards and those defensive stoppers or those literal 3-and-D guys that shouldn't put the ball on the floor necessarily, they start to value those roles and those things get celebrated as well. And that's going to help our game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're getting to another area I wanted to ask about in relation to the money thing. And on, I believe it was the Coach's Playbook podcast, you said one of my favorite things I've heard you say publicly about for recruits about finding a fit where they can fail and like feel supported by failure. Find a place you can fail. I thought that was an awesome answer that you had there, and people should go listen to it. But especially now with how persuasive money can be in the recruiting process, that like is what it is. There's a lot at stake. How important is it for top recruits to think about finding places they can fail when, again, like that is an additional component that a college program can put on as like a nice face when they're being recruited?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just as important. It's just going to be able to be drowned out a little bit. And I would add that it might be more important because when, sometimes these numbers leak, sometimes they don't. But the fact is, if you're a top recruit, there's going to be a massive assumption that you got a decent paycheck, which means there's going to be more expectation and it's going to be talked about. And then if you're not performing, someone who is performing, who's not getting paid as much as you are, that creates a whole level of stuff that has to be managed. And that's, on the leadership of these staffs, God bless them. So they'll figure it out. We are in an evolutionary period. And I've been saying, like, one thing I do like about this is it's going to cause the new age leaders to rise to the top. They're going to have to manage this stuff. They're going to have the guts to not sell out, which happens in recruiting a lot. There's always somebody who's willing to sell out to get a kid, right? They're going to do that. And there's going to be ramifications of that. So the new age leaders are going to survive. But in terms of an aspect of that conversation, and I just had this the other day again with a top 20, 26 who's kind of narrowed their thing down to 3, and they're deciding. I said, look, you're a top player. These are all great programs. So you got to really start thinking about how you fit in terms of, it's not just style of play. Everybody says fit and style of play, and coaches talk this and that. If you're smart enough, basketball high IQ enough, you can get to the weeds and really break down film and understand. And whatever speaks to you should matter. But I said, you need to analyze the relationship in which you have with these coaches, but also with the locker room. This is what these visits are for. The visits are not just for like bells and whistles and facilities and meeting with the GM and writing a number on a napkin. You got to know who you're going to fail with, because you are going to fail. And I don't mean go and lose. Nobody plans to go and lose. I mean, like, it was a rough day in practice. Are you with people who are going to go in there and complain about the staff or complain about the fact they have to come back the next day or whatever? Or do you want to be around people who are like, all right, this was a rough one. We have to be better tomorrow because we play in 21 days. Or, hey, someone says, hey, we've all been there. This is a rough one. They have to create these instances and stuff for practice for us. They have to stretch us mentally, right? It's not just everybody thinks the work is like, oh, it's grinding because you're breathing hard and your legs burn. That's like 5% of it, right? Like, that's a given. Suck it up, right? It's who are you around that pours back into you? If you're that guy, maybe you're not. And that's the other thing I challenge him with. Look, if you're not that one, don't worry about it. If you don't really want to be elite, that's okay. Know yourself. Same thing I went back to earlier, like, self-awareness and humility. And then also like the staffs, like, there's the recruiting that makes you feel good because they know everything about you and your social life and what you like to watch and listen to. And they pretend they like what you listen to, and they can't possibly like what you listen to because who likes any of that stuff? And like, sorry. And like, you know what I'm saying though? Or there's the one that has established the coaching relationship with you that when you get to campus with all these expectations helps you manage it because you can't possibly know how until you experience it. And that's what I'm talking about. The little tiny failures, the understanding that you're not going to make a great stride. Like 1% better is really good. So like, who's going to keep you? Can you be day to day? You've been in this recruiting process since, like, if you're really good, like your freshman or sophomore year, it was assumed you're going to go to a high place. You've been riding that cloud. Okay, that's over in November when you sign. Now you got to be good, right? And then it's just a little better every day. There's not this big monumental thing you're looking for next, right? It's produce. And then the money worries me a little bit because, when you're young or anytime, justifying failure or justifying excuses as to not reevaluate how you're approaching something is very dangerous in all of our lives, right? If they're just like, well, I mean, I'm not playing, I'm not getting any better, but my paycheck is nice. Pretty soon you're a junior and you're done. And it's time for you to go because you're not going to play, right? So like, I hope it doesn't do that, but it's going to, right? It's going to. So again, the elite ones will find a way, and that's fair. It's competitive and it's fair, and they're allowed to make those mistakes. People need to introduce these thoughts to them a little earlier, so maybe we can avoid some because, I mean, we have 18 W teams now. Let's make sure we have enough good players.
Yeah. I appreciate how honest that is. I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of people. I guess, again, this might be a broad question, so if you don't have a single answer, it's okay. But one question I had written down that I have wanted to ask you is there a WNBA or college player, let's say not like All-American, not WNBA All-Star, not household name, but someone that you think more younger players should watch for how they approach the game that I guess is repeatable? So not saying like they would be a ridiculous athlete or have crazy measurables and stuff that is repeatable that you could aspire to.
Veronica Burton.
That's perfect. Okay.
Perfect for our podcast.
Yeah.
And
All right.
it's perfect for the podcast. It's also perfect, like, for the timing because of what she did last night and what she's done a couple times and what the Valkyries are doing in terms of style of play expansion and what the future of this league looks like. If you are an aspiring W player and you are not studying how they play and how they're doing things, like every detail, you're crazy. Because that's what the future of the league is going to look like.
Okay. Wow.
But like Veronica Burton barely got her scholarship to Northwestern. And I say barely, like not a lot of P4s is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the earliest conversations I ever had with Lori Bolin was about Veronica, and she was just blown away how she wasn't ranked and this and that. And no judgment on anybody else, but like watching her play, I was like, I see every intangible ever. There's no way, like, I shouldn't say no way, but like with relationships and reach, like I can't imagine that could get missed now. We appreciate that stuff too much. It's just different philosophies. I get it, but like, she's good. Kate Martin, similar, right? Like, just figure it out. Became an elite role player. Right place, right time, all of the above. Those guys get paid. Like, the ones that struggle to get in are the ones that don't understand the value of being a role player. Like, your outliers are going to make it. Your stars are going to make it. The guys who stick, man, they're mature, they're intelligent, they work hard, they take care of their bodies, and they know how to fill roles. Yeah. Those are two really, really good examples.
That team in general has been just awesome to watch. And like, I'm thinking of even like Caitlin Chen too, to go from Princeton stardom to UConn, filled her role really well, to now same team. Yeah. Really
basketball is a thinking game. The women's game doesn't play above the rim. So there's only like so much that the eye test and the airport test is valuable. And again, the outliers make it. I'm not saying like those guys. I'm just saying like the ones people really want to make it and they just don't have it. Someone's going to outthink them. And that's more valuable. Yeah. Especially as the game is spaced out and there's more decisions being made. You play, that's very unique to the game of basketball, but it's more so true now. There's not a place on the floor you can't go in the game of basketball. In today's game, with the schemes and the switching and the pick-on schemes and just getting people into rotation, you're going to be all over the floor. I hope you can think and recognize, and that doesn't happen by ball and hand drills. It doesn't.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think this is really great. I think one of the last areas as far as evaluating goes, I want to make sure I get this in. You currently have 4 New England players ranked. Fope Io at Austin Prep and Rivals. Elise Ngenda also at Rivals New Hampton, Bella Wumi, MCW Stars, and now Tilton transferred. Ella Pieper, number 4, Dexter Southfield, Bay State Jaguars. You don't need to give us the full breakdown, but let's say, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute on why they are in your conversations, what makes each of them special. Obviously, like, we hype them up all the time, but I think it's really important to get your national lens because it's different than ours.
Sure. Okay, so let's start with Fope. I mean, she's always had obviously the frame and the physicality, right? And then motor, she's always run the floor, and we've watched her get a little bit more physical, improve her coordination and her assertiveness. I mean, being a confident post player. She's real soft-spoken, and people probably don't assume that. And she's pretty soft-spoken. So, like, you know, I think people expect bigs to just be like dominant because they're big. And it's like, you know, don't forget she's 13 and 14 years old and like figuring it out, right? So, like, watching that process has been rewarding. I think you know, extremely coachable and just started again asserting herself a little bit more, showing that she's taken incremental steps. So that bodes well. I would say in terms of like the numbers and things from the summer and then watching her play, she must be better on the glass. She must affect more shots in the paint defensively. And, you know, if she's going to be near the rim and getting fouled and things, she's got to be way better from the free throw line. So, but again, she has, in watching and in talking and understanding where she comes from, like, she's going to have the things where she accepts that. She probably already knows it, right? It's not news to her. But those things gotta be better. And, you know, I'm kind of a wait and see, like, okay, she's got to do it now, right? Like, I can't project it necessarily, but I like the ingredients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, who was that? Elise, right?
Yes. Yep.
Saw Elise, let's see, previous summer, fundamental guard, didn't shoot the three a whole lot. And then fast forward to December, and she had a breakout performance. I think you and I talked about it. Like, she got game, hit like 6 threes in a row. You start paying attention. She's carrying herself a little bit more like less like a small 2 and a little bit more like a combo lead. Super fundamental. Shot it very well this summer in the 3SSB circuit, a little over 40%.
Yep.
Like 13 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists type of production, which is super solid. Not super fleet of foot, right? So it's like it's going to be fit and matchup oriented for her, because like it's hard to be, you know, too high level of a point guard if there's mobility, you know, ceilings, but she's fundamental and figures it out. So you like those kinds. Like I said, easy stroke and fundamental and team oriented. So like she's going to contribute at the level, because she'll go to an appropriate level, you know. I know a lot of the Ivies, you know, want her badly. So like we've seen massive success. You referenced Caitlin Chen earlier. Like, you know, I again, pretty solid.
Yep.
Let's who else? Bella. Explosive athlete. I was first noticed her last year just in talking to Mandy and the Michael Carter Williams people or whatever. Just kind of was like a raw slasher into last year, and then followed up with the high school film. And she was at I know she's changed schools now, but was at a place where they ran good stuff. They ran chin actions. They rotated defensively. It was, you know, from a level standpoint, it was hard to watch, but a scheme standpoint, it was quality basketball in which I could appreciate, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they ran good stuff. They had good reads. She learned defensive rotation. All things are going to be very valuable. She's added some wiggle and explosiveness off the dribble, a little like a little bit of a lesser Jordan Jackson, which is that is a compliment. Her big thing is she's going to have to start being able to shoot it. I was able to lock in a little bit while she was shooting at overtime this weekend. It doesn't take me long to kind of get the 360 view. There's some footwork and some balance things that are very correctable. It causes the ball to change a little bit in the shooting pocket. It's fixable because it comes out of her hand well. But that's going to be her next climb. And then obviously she'll play a little bit of a better or I should say a considerably better high school schedule. This high school season, that'll be good for her.
Yeah.
What else we got? Pieper.
Yes.
You know, there's a ton of potential there, but if I'm being honest, like I'm not as high as a lot of people are. There's some habits that concern me. The lack of rebounding concerns me, particularly at the 16U level, and then she's a little bit older than her class. So those are things that I pay attention to. Obviously wants to shoot the three and does it fairly well, but inside the arc, there's not a lot of production or consistency. So there's a thing, with versatility is like you're versatile as, a 6'3", 6'4" with a good frame. If you do the things that those guys do, and then you do the other things well, but it's not versatile if you don't, right? You got to rebound. You got to defend a little bit better. You've got to be switchable. Or I'm sure in her head, she's right now going to be a 3. If you're going to be a 3, it's a different ball game than being a 4, right? There's facilitation elements that have got to be better. So again, do I appreciate the stroke? Absolutely. Do I think that basketball means a lot to her? Absolutely. On a day-to-day basis, would she be somebody I really challenge right now? Absolutely. Because 16U, 17U level jump is massive, especially with the 4 circuits and things being spread out. So, but I mean, again, I'm not being negative. I see potential there, so I tend to want and have a need to make it better. And I think it's time for her to take care of some of those things.
Yeah. No, again, I really value these honest assessments, because I think we watch so much of, especially with these 4, like we're watching NEPSAC basketball, which is really solid, like pretty deep level competition. But there's a whole, we've talked about this too. There's a whole world that we don't really see. And so I think it's really important to get that wide picture developmental view. So thank you for that. Steve, is there any other evaluating things that you want to ask?
It's a good jumping off point with just talking about Ella, obviously being ranked 4th in the country. And you mentioned earlier about Veronica not being ranked when she was in high school, but just kind of a big picture, the value of rankings. I'm curious your perspective, because obviously that changes with every kid. Every kid has their own path. But and when we had Ella on the podcast, she talked about how important it was for her to see that she was number 4, because it validated her work to this point, and gave her something to shoot for motivational wise. To obviously she wants to be higher than 4, and which I thought was a great perspective. But for you, I guess, how important is it for you, or how important is it for kids to not maybe be too wrapped up in rankings? Obviously, there's flash and buzz that kind of goes along with that. And with your platform, obviously you were very straight and narrow with your analysis of her, and level-headed with your analysis. But how important is that for you to do that with your platform, and make sure you're not overhyping a player, and making sure, like I said, you're staying level-headed in your analysis?
Yeah. So how important are they? I would say this: it's a responsibility that we have, and it gives us the platform to have development conversations and guidance conversations. That's how important it is to me in terms of the responsibility. In terms of any given day, a name or a number next to a name as you go to the gym to progress in your career doesn't mean anything. Doesn't. But I with the caveat of, we have an exhaustive process. And you could ask Jason and KP, and then when we consult, like Basketball Bob, I failed to mention up to this point, but we love talking to Bob. We have to have a reason for everything, and I challenge them on everything, every single one, every order. Why? And if you don't have the why, this conversation is incomplete. And so we have enough resources, we have enough reach, and if we don't have it, we get it, right? There's no high school coach is not going to send us film. No high school coach is going to, keep us from getting numbers, right? So I say that with the caveat of, it's important because it's a foundational thing to recruiting, analysis, fandom. Now, quite frankly, NIL numbers, the agency consultations that are coming our way now. It's a conversation starter, so they're important, which means to me, it just deepens our responsibility. So we take it very serious. And generally, when challenged, we have a pretty good list of reasons as to why we made a decision that we did. Early on, when we first took this thing over, I said to Jason, hey, this first year, every question we get, we've got to answer. They've got to understand our philosophy is much different than the past, we'll say, right? They got to understand how we approach this. And we extended that to a couple years because it became really important for people to understand how we approached it and that we weren't going to use this for leverage. We don't need to. We have a huge operational side for events. We're very fortunate to be on a lot of platforms. Our motivation is to get it right. I want to look back at the 2021s and have the 2022s be better and the 2023s be better, right? In terms of our accuracy and projection, right? And again, starting off, like, it was definitely difficult because we couldn't see everybody play, right? So like that happened. We just want to be better. So it's important because of responsibility. It's important because of the platform. It allows us to have these conversations and things. Like, if I didn't do this, nobody would probably really care or whatever. Like, we'd had to find a different way to have a voice or affect the game, whatever. But in terms of players day to day, like, they shouldn't get wrapped up. And the thing is, they're fluid until, you know, what did we do last, like, April of your senior year? Like, they're changing. Yeah, there's like Aaliyah Spate right now. It's too low. That's going to change. We'll have the first week of October. We'll update. We're well aware, right? But it's not something, you don't just go to ESPN as a corporation and be like, hey, we're just going to change this real quick. Like, there's a budget to it and there's timing to do it. You don't want to do it too frequently. You don't want to do it too infrequently, right? So, like, those things can change. Development doesn't stop. The light bulb goes off at different times. Finding value in a role that gives you the maturity to become a professional, right? People are like, oh, that's a pro. And I'm like, easy, right? Like, you talk about overhyping. I slow play a lot. I want them to earn it. We've absolutely dangled the carrot before and seen fantastic responses. And I think that's just the coach in me that's like, let's see, we've got time here. And then, yeah, the very last one is the last one. So, like, you can't do that anymore. But up until that point, you know, and it leads to a lot of conversations with players that people don't realize that we have. And so that part is really rewarding, connecting on that level with them, knowing you're planting seeds for the future, knowing that you're talking to their future college coaches or potential future college coaches or their agents or the W, like the people that are paying attention. People don't realize the you know, how extensive that is. So that part makes it important.
Yeah, I think it's been really cool to hear. Obviously, I knew that you would be talking to a lot of college coaches as you go through this process, just because of your own background too. But to hear you allude to the amount of conversations that you have with players, not only about the rankings and stuff, but about college fit and about player development, and the fact that you get to have and you seek out these active, like, real connections, and you're not throwing up the rankings and then hiding behind a keyboard or anything. Like, you very much back them up, and then you very much, like, have a productive conversation about it. That is really cool. And again, shows that you're genuinely invested in a lot of this.
The people that approach it the right way, if someone wants to talk development, I tell them I've got all the time in the world for that. The people who just want to, like, fire a couple shots and then, like, tell you how to do what you've been doing for 20 plus years, I don't, and I can't help them with that. But the ones who are generally interested in development and understanding the next level, like, I can't help it. I'm like, let's dive into film. Like, there were players that were getting the Nike Skills Academy last night, texting like, all right, here's the setup. What do you think? Give me a couple things for advice, like whatever, right? It's just connecting on that basketball level. If they love it, I can't help it. If they don't, I don't have time for it. I like, just like the small opportunities I get for development. I tell people, look, you're going to own this process. We're going to spend some time in the gym. You'll own this. But if this is like a thing to check off a list, or I'm in the gym with so-and-so, I'm going to know that, and I don't have time for that. But I have an undying fire for the one who loves it and wants to be better. I can't help it. Can't help it.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Man, I have a bunch of questions. I got to cut myself off so we have some time for full court pass. My last one, again, this is a little future thinking, because again, you have watched as a coach, evaluator, media member now too, really, this kind of growth over the last 10 or so years. And before that with your coaching. What excites you / concerns you / what do you want to see about girls high school basketball and grassroots in the next 5 to 10 years? And I know cross circuit matchups is one of them. I know you want to see more of those. But in addition to that, what else are you thinking about as this space keeps evolving?
Well, I want to keep the main thing. As more money is poured in and more opportunity, and the brands, for the most part, you know, I don't know, like they don't know them the way that we know them, right? So like they want to treat them to things and they want to do this, and that's great. But we also got to make sure like there's a responsibility to make sure that they are keeping the main thing. Because like you're interested in them because they're good basketball players. Why do you want to enter into a variable that deters them from becoming their best as a basketball player? So we've got, fast forward, we got, again, I referenced it. We got 18 W teams coming right now, right? We don't necessarily have 18 W teams worth of players. We're going to have a massive influx of Europeans because the CBA is going to make them all more money despite the ridiculous headlines right now, right? Like it's happening. And so more Europeans are going to come here. So it's going to get a little bit more competitive. They're going to have no choice. I'm happy that brands are interested. I'm happy that these players can work and see that they can make a tremendous living. I caution them to not, jump at dollars, do too much, take on the pressures, right? We've seen it in multiple industries. We see it in men's sports that are flush with cash already. We see the cautionary tales. We see it in Hollywood. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just want to make sure they keep the main thing. And again, that's my role. I'm not an agent. I'm not a brand. I'm not a marketer. I'm not a whatever. But that it's concerning from that standpoint. Do I think we'll be okay? Ultimately, yes. Like, I'm not like, I don't think the sky is falling. But like, I do think there's going to be an adjustment and an evolution where we have some cautionary tales where, again, it's like, well, I've got the money, so like, what's the big deal? Or I got caught up in these brands and I stopped working, and then it's time to produce and I'm not doing it. So then there's a lot of pressure on me. Attention comes pressure. Pressure means you've got to have some wisdom and some people around you. I don't love everybody that's coming into the space right now. I mentioned talking to agents. I don't like all of them that I've talked to. I don't like all of them that I watch operate. I hear a lot of horror stories from conversations that they have. These parents call and ask afterwards, and some things that they're doing are absurd. This is the stuff I worry about. However, we've just got to get through this phase, and I always believe the cream will rise to the top. I just don't want to sacrifice any talent along the way, because if we're going to have a better TV contract for the W, if we're going to have a better TV contract for college, if there's going to be more people going to watch the game, Debbie Antonelli says it best. The product is the narrative. The game's got to be good. Again, in the women's game, no one's just rising up and dunking on people, and people aren't, they can go to the men's game and kind of appreciate that side of it or whatever. Like, we've got to be good and skilled. And so losing one is not good enough for me. Right. So again, I'm not in any way, ringing the bell, but that's a concern of mine. What am I excited about? All of that as well. Right. All of it. The stage, the growth, the new TV, the money influx, the changing environment. Chaos creates opportunity. We'll have better leaders. And if you work and your heart's in the right place, the right people end up in the right spot. I believe it. So that part, yeah, all of the above. The growth of the game I'm excited about. I just want to do it right. And I'm a slow play guy. I don't skip steps. And I hope other people don't, but it's inevitable, so I got to deal with it.
Yeah. I think about this a lot when I am on, I probably spend too much time on Twitter, so I see this. I see a lot of the comments about like, oh, if the women's game is going to get to this level like the men's game, it has to go through the same struggle things that the men's do, or they have to experience the same kind of bad parts that the men do. And the answer is like, you don't really have to. Like, you can make an effort as a community to just not let that stuff happen if you like try hard enough. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. And so,
yeah, you can learn from mistakes of other people, which smart people do. But to a certain level, which I'm alluding to, that's to a certain level, there's truth to that. Of course there is, because it's human nature, right? It's human nature. And like with recruiting or any of this stuff, like, again, I've seen 10,000 iterations of that. These people going through it are probably going to see one. That's not fair to expect them to have the wisdom, but you hope that they have a good circle around them, or have some people who could seek advice or things like that, that could just plant a seed to help them do it with some wisdom, because they can't all be the Angel Reese, the Caitlin Clark, the Paige Beckers. There's many different ways to do it. And again, those guys are the outliers, So, it's going to be fine. I really do. Otherwise, my tone would be much different. I think it will be fine.
Yeah. Dang. Okay. Steve, anything else? If I think we have time for some full court press. Yeah.
I think we do. Before we go to full court press, this was in Ethan's notes, and I want to make sure it was asked. Except that I think this might be a fun one. But who is the best? Who's the best New England girls prospect you've ever scouted? Obviously, we talked about the top recruits right now. But in the time you've been in this space and doing this, can you think of the best one you've ever scouted, or one or two? Doesn't have to be just one.
Man,
Put it on the spot, but
I know I'm trying to think of some candidates. You guys might have to throw me some. I mean, I really like Kaylin Carroll. I think Kaylin Carroll's going to be good. I think her versatility. She loves the game. She shoots it. I like, and I think Kentucky was really good for her.
I know Duke Farm was your highest rated, I think, ever.
I love Caroline. Alucci, love Alucci. I was pounding that drum. She's a great example. I know we talked about W examples. Alucci's a great example. Played hard, then got skilled and got scary. Just an undying motor. I'm not sure she gets tired. Love Caroline. Versatile. I mean, much the same reason of Kaylin Carroll. But Ducharme, there's just a resilience to her and a skill and a love of the game. And then, her family's fantastic. And then what she's had to do to overcome the concussion stuff and in furtherance of that, I don't want to simplify it. It's not just that, but man, huge heart. You can just sense it. Sometimes you just connect, right? And so through the Exodus group, Thomas and those guys, I really love them. So those are a handful that really jump out to me. I say it a lot. I'd be pretty picky about who I'd want on my team, and those guys could be on my team any day.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's a good. Thank you for asking that, Steve. I forgot about that, and I did want to know that answer. Okay, thanks. But yeah,
Alucci, friend of the pod as well.
Alucci, friend of the pod. Yeah. If we have time, producer, yes, we're ready for full court press.
Full court press.
Yes, welcome back to Full Court Press, where I lob 3 quick questions the way of all of our panelists here. Shane, you're the guest, so we'll start with you. I know we've talked a lot about women's hoops, but who's the most must-watch player in the NBA right now? Let me say that again. Who's the most must-watch player in the NBA right now?
Man, it's hard for me not to watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I love what they did. His approach, lives a little bit in the mid-range, still gets to the rim, got some wiggle and some smoothness. So and then Joker is tough to miss too. I was fortunate enough to sit courtside thanks to Jason Kidd at a game they played, and I watched him manipulate the entire floor with his eyebrows, telling people where to go. He didn't even have the ball in his hands. He just it was unbelievable. So yeah, it's between those two.
Yeah, they just signed his eyebrows to an extended contract, I heard. 2 good answers. Steve, your thoughts?
It's a good one. The first name that came to my mind was John Morant.
Wow.
This might be just the highlight reel in me, but
Sure.
I just feel he does something, or he has a chance to do something every game that you never seen before. And I want to say it.
I don't know if I've said this on the pod before, but Stephen Colbert on The Late Show has this gag where one of his writers came on and said he wants to practice until he can do John Morant's backwards 360 or whatever he did. And it's been 6 or 8 months and he's not even close to the rim. Yeah, you can't. Ethan Fuller, must-watch player in the NBA.
Okay, I'll half agree and say Jokic, because I think I heard this recently. I think it was Phil Mazzulla who was hyping up Jokic because he played like a water polo player, and it was true that he played water polo growing up. And I was like, wow, that's such a cool connection for an opposing coach to make. And then I also, unfortunately, we're gonna have to wait a little bit because of his Achilles injury, but Tyrese Halliburton, and the way that I think the way that he proved that a fast-paced team that makes good decisions can really go all the way without a household name type of superstar, even though he kind of now is that. I think he's like a kind of a game changer for what people should value in the NBA. So Tyrese Halliburton's up there.
Very interesting. So many different answers. You could argue there is no one face of the NBA right now. I guess I would.
Wemby's coming. Wemby's coming.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't even say Wemby. Jeez.
All right. We'll go around the horn the opposite way. So, Ethan, you can start with this one. Backyard basketball question. Do you prefer horse, knockout, around the world, or some other shooting game you're playing in the backyard?
If it's not a pickup game type of like a 21 type of game, knockout for sure. I think knockout, the pace of play in knockout is fantastic.
Yeah.
I could always play that. That was probably my best one too.
We didn't even have knockout when I was a kid, I feel like, but my son loved it. Steve Hewitt.
A second knockout. I think I wrote this in my intro column last summer, Ethan, if you remember.
Yeah.
Maybe I mentioned it on the pod at one point, but I won when I was like 9 years old. I won like a knockout competition at the Tomorrow Stars basketball camp. Shout out Franklin Dean College, Jim Edgell, Tomorrow Stars. And I won like this like cool like Celtics themed basketball, which is probably still in my parents' basement somewhere. But that's like a core childhood memory. I got picked up by like all the campers, and I was like treated like I was like this king that just won like a championship. So knockout is my go-to for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Fond memories of knockout. I won many a college camp knockout, so we always got to take home like some pretty cool gear before I was a GA. But I would say, like, if you're talking backyard, like, you don't always have enough people to play knockout. So, like, to me, if we were to compete and shoot, like, yeah, line it up, horse or around the world, like, let's do it. Knockout, again, very fun. Camp setting, multiple people, totally agree. Backyard, sometimes you got 2, you got 3, if you're lucky. So, line up the shooting game. I feel good about it.
That's fair.
Very good. I'm waiting for the 30 for 30 on Steve Hewitt's knockout.
Yeah, this camp.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know if there are any filmographers in the building there. So
Yours will be 30 seconds. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. All right. Final question, and Shane, you can take this one first. Shane, if you could play a game of one-on-one with anyone in basketball history, who would it be? Living or dead, in their prime or otherwise? If you could play one-on-one against someone, who would you play?
Oh, golly. I mean, like, just it's like the Kobe, MJ, Diana Taurasi debate. I'm gonna go DT because I was fortunate enough to just attend her premiere the other day and then watch the rest of that doc. And as much as people think they know about her and what she did for this game, they don't. That's a killer. She's the personality of Barkley. What was the Kobe series on ESPN? The film series that he did. She's that.
Yep.
She carried the league, arguably the best player ever. So she's got the MJ. Like, that combo is dangerous, and she's gonna do some fun things. I have a feeling her personality is so gregarious, and she loves this game, and she cares about the future of this game. It's gonna be interesting to see what she does next. But I would just say, like, yeah, just because it's right here and it's top of mind, I'll go DT.
How much credit does she owe to Gino for her success?
I mean, she had it just like any player you get with the right coach. She made the decision to go across the country to a place that wasn't what it was yet, right? So, like, yeah, knowing him and his drive and how deep he gets and the resources he has, and he seeked out, and obviously their success they've had of their program, like, yeah, he knows how to push buttons, and they're very close. So I would say, obviously, there's a stake there, but I mean, it was there, man. She had the drive, she had the love, and she bought in. That she deserves a lot of credit for that.
Steve, who you playing one-on-one against?
I mean, obviously, I would get demolished, but I would do either Kobe or KD. I think just for the experience of like seeing them up close, because they're obviously 2 of the best scorers ever, and just to like see what kind of moves they would put on me, and maybe take some learning experiences there with my back pocket. And just,
it's a huge leap to say moves, but I feel you. Like tough.
Yep. Yeah. You might get a point, Steve. Who knows?
No.
That's
Well,
kind
it's
of
not.
Hey,
that's not the point of
knockout offensive rebound. He's got an instinct.
Yeah.
And Ethan, who you playing against?
If I want to win, I'm playing my younger brothers. If I assume I don't want to, probably not going to win, and I would rather take this opportunity. Again, I want to shout out. I'm going to go a little older.
Okay.
One, I'm going to give two answers. Partially to tease an upcoming feature, so I will go with the late great Medina Dixon because there's no film out there of how good she was. And I want to see it for myself. Same vein, I'll go Cheryl Miller because there is much more film out there of her, but I don't think enough people today, maybe in our region, realize how ridiculous she was. So I would get stomped by one of them.
Very
Yeah.
fair.
How'd you like to be Reggie Miller, one of the greatest long distance shooters of all time and the second best player in his family, right?
That's great.
All right. Tremendous job all on Full Court Press. Well done. And back to you boys to wrap things up.
All right. Yeah. Pretty much does it for us. Thank you so much, Shane. Just the depth of conversation in this is one of the best that we've had so far. And so we really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it, you guys. Great questions. I can tell you love it, which makes me really happy. Ethan, our first conversation, I was just talking to somebody about doing this the other day, and they kind of asked how we met. And I said, man, we were just sitting there chatting. He's like, can I ask some questions? I said, of course. And when I find that people who love it, want to be good at it and appreciate it, that's really rewarding for me. So I just want you to know that. And obviously, I trusted that you had a network that was similar. So staying on top of this, your efforts have been impressive, and I'm here for you guys anytime.
We appreciate that. I
Awesome.
appreciate that so much. And I will, next time I see you, I will, if you're not busy, I'm gonna use you again.
You should do it anyway. I'm probably busy with something I don't want to be doing.
Okay, deal. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Shane. That'll wrap things up here. Again, another really great guest we had on this show. So for Shane Laflin, for producer David Yaz, for Steve Hewitt, I'm Ethan Fuller. We'll see you next time.